It's a rally town. The World Series is still going on. I have to be there. And then we went to the beach.
Okay,
So
it's okay. It's all right. There'll be other opportunities. It'll be good.
it's great.
Not that, right, not that great, right?
Back, so
Never-
yeah,
I've not been to
time to
the
get
parade since I
popcorn,
was a
toast, a
kid.
marshmallow, and it's a parade. That's when I moved here. We hit 3 It's a Wonderful Life festivals before we lived here.
Oh,
'Cause
nice.
we had a friend from up here. And we were like, let's just move to Indiana, man. This is awesome.
It really
And
was a
we-
nice.
Work session, Borough Council for November to order. And we are going to have to be taking a vote tonight, so Lori, if you call the roll, please. Here.
Here.
Present.
Present.
Lancaster. Noel. Smith. Steelman. Taylor. Warnock. 9 present, 3 absent.
Email from whom saying that she is still ill and she's coughing and sneezing and doesn't want to spread her germs around the room, for which we are grateful. And Casey is off in Michigan. I don't know about Jonathan. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda?
I have an executive session at the end.
I say that, but it's okay. You've said it, that's good.
Is there going to be any business after that executive?
Business after the executive session.
And what will be the purposes?
It's legal personnel, I guess, sort of combination.
Legal and personnel.
Just. Doesn't look like it. Committee reports, administration committee. I'm not sure that we have anything. Yeah. Bringing the budget to us at the last meeting.
I think you can all keep until next time.
Now, one thing. Administration committee, we as a committee did not vote, I don't think, did we? Vote to not meet in December? It's
And it was just you and I, so.
it's 2/3 of the committee.
We mentioned it.
With this council. For committees not to meet in December unless there's a need to.
We do have the first meeting in December.
Oh, we have the council meeting, yes, it's just committees that. Have traditionally not met unless there was a need to, so. I just slightly irregular to do it this way, but lacking our chair.
I don't have any personal need to meet unless you think, I mean, I've never been through a December admin meeting before. You tell me. Sounds like you don't normally have them, so.
Let's call one if it's needed. Now, community development, did you make a decision about meeting in December?
We decided to go ahead and leave it on the books because Josh kept coming up with things to do.
Great.
I'll come, that'll speak. it up.
Okay.
Public safety,
We did meet last week, and we did, the committee did vote on to have no December Public Safety Committee meeting on December 22nd, unless there is a real pressing need where we have to meet. So right now that has been,
and do you have anything else for us?
no, not, everything will be in the next report, next meeting in about 2 weeks.
We won't meet until next week and we will likely end up canceling unless there's need for it, but we don't have a decision on that. We don't have anything to report right now, but we do have an action item.
Yes.
Just a quick reminder, it's snow season and salt season, so make way for snowplows and our crews when they're out there trying to clear the roads. In case we get some snow. And yes, there is an action item. I had mentioned this in a couple of reports previously where I think it was a part of our unfinished business where I guess it's every 5 years, the treatment standards are reviewed for our wastewater. Our pre-treatment coordinator is mentioned a number of times here, and that's Roland Francis. And when we asked him for a quick synopsis, he sent us the whole thing and said, let's talk about arsenic, cadmium, chromium, and copper and cyanide. We can do that. I also have a lot of faith coming out of the Public Works Committee this and ask specifically, can we meet these new standards? Is this going to be a push for our wastewater treatment plant? Is this going to cost extra? And the answer was no, we can easily meet these standards. So I'm comfortable offering this up as a motion. It didn't come out of the committee meeting, so it'll take a second. So I moved to advertise this ordinance amending ordinance 2010-06 is to advertise pre-treatment standards for publicly owned treatment works for the Borough of Indiana. And providing for several.
Is there a second?
Yeah, so that's not this, so we spend money to run the sewage treatment plant, and under that same budget, we're gonna be able to maintain these standards. It's a good question.
All it does is it looks like it's getting more specific. Is that accurate? I mean,
Yeah,
they're just going out more digits is all it looks like.
Yeah, I do a little, that's an increase.
Brings in line with state standards.
That brings us in line. There is a specific addition of ammonia. So that was not on the list before, and that is a new piece.
Motion? This is to advertise. We don't need to- Oh, okay, yes.
I believe you should roll call.
All right,
That's
a
just
roll
my
call.
opinion.
Yes.
DeBowser, Ford, Herring, Kratza,
Yes.
Lancaster,
Yes.
Noel, Smith.
Yes.
Steelman. Yes. Taylor, Warner, 9 yes, 3 absent.
Anything from Shade Tree?
We haven't met yet. We meet next week, and I would assume the meeting in December 26th won't happen. But we have to decide that next week, Monday.
We're right. Okay, well, Nicole, it's up to you.
Couple things. I did say this on the radio this morning, but I do want to give another shout out for the wonderful light parade to Hasty, Frank, and Joe Kinner and all the volunteers to DI. They did a wonderful job. Also, our police department, Justin, Chief Shaw, kind of the week before sat down with the staff and kind of took the lead and walked us through the process. Public Works Department did great. That 3 o'clock that afternoon, we had that little snow thing come in, made everything icy. They got the streets, salted the streets up by the tree. They shut Vinegar Hill steps down because people were, that got icy. So they did a great job, not only preparing to shut the streets down, but then dealing with some icy spots. Parking department got all the cars in, parked. It was a busy night, but everybody did a wonderful job. So I just want to thank everybody for that. The second thing I have is the Get Solar program. And Kyle did send an email up to help the nonprofit organizations and small businesses is up and running. If you want to go on our website at indianaborough.com/solar, you can find out information on that. Again, Kyle sent an email out just a little bit ago on that. Peter's also involved in going to those meetings. I do want to give an update on the building, on the renovation process. We've been in actually dealing with our project manager for the last couple months now. So we have started a couple phases. Phase 1 was kind of them coming in, doing a layout plan of the whole building. So it's been an ongoing process, but I want to say where we're kind of at is still in step 1, phase 1, where we're working with the project manager, going over the floor plan. We had Florida consultant come in and do our roof. They took samples of our roof and to see where we're losing energy, heat, and where it's leaking and the portions of that. We had hazard material sampling. A gentleman came in and took samples of the different paints and flooring to get prepared to see what's asbestos and moving forward when we start tearing things out.
Find asbestos, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Some of the things we're running into is we have things that are built that's not on the plans, which is kind of normal over from the plans of 1975, you know, the boiler system having some of the things were updated, but not showing any documentation for it. But now we're at the point where the project manager is going to come in with Chief Shaw and I and kind of go over, you know, what we would like to see changes or the structure of the offices or the layout, anything that we can feel like we can utilize better. Obviously, this room needs upgraded, not the sound system, it needs upgraded for this acoustic, you know, obviously the ceiling and the whole Monday, we had no heat here. So we were working in our winter jackets and had a heater. So the fan, our belt went in our boiler. So things like that. So again, that's why it's so important. We really stick to this and move forward with this reconstruction. Some of the other big things are we meet with them on December 1st, and it's probably, hopefully this is phase 2, then we'll really start digging down into what we would like the building to look like. Then we might even go visit. There's a Bedford went through the same process where they have a police department, an administration department, a council room where they went through this process of what happens when we do renovate. You know, there might be a time we are having a council meeting somewhere else. So just to be prepared, it's going to be, you know, a rough couple months. We might have to relocate. There's a possibility of that. The admin might have to relocate across the street. So that's all going to come up in the next few months when we're meeting. Other than that, that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions about the building renovation projects? And the idea of to tear it down and start brand new is off the table because it's $8.1 million to do that. So we can't tear it down and start from new. So renovation is what we have to, is what we get. All right.
We build up.
It's like going through the community building, the library building.
But anyways, we're closed on Thursday for Thanksgiving, so I want to wish everybody a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving. And that's it.
If I can add, Public Works, I came in at 4 a.m. from work and they were climbing ladders, taking down flags, putting up decorations, 4 a.m. in the morning. And I know that they have been around and around and around in circles, picking up all these leaves. And even though we rake our leaves and they redecorate our yard, Public Works, I was talking to them and just heard the multitude of things that they get involved in and how short their staff list is. So I don't know if people recognize it in our community, but if somebody complains, ask them if they want to volunteer with them one day and go about all that they do. I mean, they're just everywhere doing everything. They're little elves, so.
When you got
Mhm.
snow mixed with leaves, then you get frozen leaves, then they get a clogged machine.
Is till this week because the need of that truck that they use, that they also use for major plowing, needs to get maintenance done before the snow hits. So leaf pickup is done after Friday, but if they bag the leaves, our crew can go around and we'll pick up the leaves for them.
Up already.
Just for clarity, didn't it say on Facebook December 1st? You might get some angry phone calls just in case.
Yeah, there's a Gazette article I just forwarded that said through December,
Through December.
not through December, to December. I think it said to
To
December.
December, so it's like
I just
an
pulled it
extra
up.
day.
Well, if it is, there may be a clarification post
Thanksgiving, up until Thanksgiving is when we always picked up and then. stopped. Yeah.
Until December, therefore you might get some folks, hey, what's up with my pile of leaves I put there at the last day of the month?
Or it says till the end of November. It says leaf collection to occur from 10/24 until December.
Through Tuesday.
That was the headline on the thing, and
Tuesday or Thursday.
nobody reads past that.
Yeah, I clearly did.
I didn't either. I forwarded it,
Yeah.
but it says the same thing when you open it.
Well, that's it.
Manager,
Sir, thank you. I would also like to echo my thoughts, both professional and personal, for the It's a Wonderful Life Parade. I think it's one of the best events that Indiana Borough hosts. Not that we are the host, but that our community hosts. And I also would echo that it was a complete effort for this parade. Manager and staff of code, public works, parking. Truly a complete effort. And I'd also be remiss if I didn't add that we were assisted by not only the Indiana Fire Department, but many other fire departments who not only participated in the parade, but also participated in staging in various sides of Indiana Borough in the event that there was an emergency, so that we could get fire personnel to fire scenes that would otherwise be clogged due to the roads. And then finally, Citizens Ambulance Service is always present at all of our special events, and that's a specific staffing detail, I'm sure, because of the propensity for someone to fall ill or to be otherwise injured. And then again, it's a matter of getting people to and from the parade route, which we've had difficulty in past years with just the logistics of movement around town. So complete partner effort. I'm very proud of, also thank you. The police department was specifically assisted by the IUP Police Department and the Indiana County Sheriff's Department. And they're a big part too, because the safety for the event, the traffic road closures for the event, it requires more than what sometimes we have available to make it as safe as possible. So just generally a very nice effort. Appreciate every citizen and that showed up for the parade, the respect that they showed not only to us, but to the parade as it went past, the smiles on kids' faces, the mayor in the lead car. It was all spectacular.
That's the
So
He said he.
very much appreciate that effort and the community's efforts in coming out for that. On a lighter note, I apologize for having the worst beard in the room. It's soon to come off, so don't hold on to this picture. That will come off at the end of November. And
Let me just tell you.
I just wish everyone.
I just won't shave it.
As always, just thank you for your support. It's an honor to lead with you.
I think the advertising for the parade was pretty good too.
The parade was great. The photo in the Gazette was great. Renda's advert broadcasting of the parade was great. I think it was.
Josh did a good job.
Talk about a total team effort.
Well,
It was in the local, it was not, Channel 4 did cover it as.
Mike Clark actually
Uh-huh.
came out.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, I think that's DI that does a lot of that advertising, but whoever's doing it. I agree. It's great.
And because I think we're so popular, Pittsburgh did their light up night the next night.
That's exactly why. That's exactly what. We played Friday night. We played Friday. You're right.
Because we used to be same night. They moved theirs back a day.
You're right. It was.
all right,
All right.
anything else?
I'll repeat that.
The solicitor, do you have anything very briefly?
You want to commend the police officers for the light up night. I mean, it was really nice to see the way they were interacting with the crowd and the kids and just very, very hospitable, friendly. it was really a testament to what you're doing with your department. And it does go, it is noticed. I do want to also thank, mainly because it's a little bit selfish, but I want to thank the Indiana baseball team. They went and helped clean up after. I'm the president of the booster, so that's why I give them the plug, but there was about 30 of them that went after the parade and helped clean up, with downtown Indiana. So we appreciate their efforts.
We weren't actually wondering who was gonna do that, so it's good to know. Now we know.
I'm sure there were other community groups that helped. I just know that they were one of the groups. There's, I think, did you see the picture, chief? I think there was like 30 of them.
Yes,
Is what I
think that's accurate.
Yeah,
I
so,
think from my vantage point, was at least 8th Street to 5th Street was
Yeah.
strictly the baseball team.
Yeah. yeah, so did want to give those guys a shout out. But as far as anything really legal, I mean, Nicole and I are working on a couple of things. We'll brief you in executive, but otherwise things are quiet. As always, if you have a question or need anything from me, you know where I'm at.
Any questions? Then I guess it's me. I didn't speak up about the parade because I knew I'd get a chance to speak anyhow, but I feel somewhat badly that I had so little to do with the parade, and yet people have been stopping me and thanking me for a wonderful parade and festival. I think my extension, the borough, I don't think they really meant me. They just. But it was a great night. And the only other thing, you've seen my name in the paper or heard it on the radio last couple of days. Because David Loomis asked me to talk to him, and I did. And then he published it. And Pat Clunan saw that and called me up to see if it was true, and it was. But as you know, we have that conditional use hearing half an hour before the start of the council meeting for our December meeting. So,
No, just for point of clarity, Mr. President, I've been instructed by the attorneys for Heartland. They have not given up the Philadelphia street fight.
I never thought they had.
So this is a contingent or second location that they're exploring.
Yeah.
So just want to put that out there that they've not made a
Yes.
decision on which site they would like to use. They're considering both sites. So just FYI.
And Tom Hartley didn't know anything about it.
Two sites. One of them is under litigation and the other one is not. Is that right?
Correct.
But when we expect to hear the
I-
judge's decision.
Yeah, I would expect that we're gonna have a decision within the next few weeks.
Before December 6th.
I can't speak to that. I don't know when Judge Clark will render his ruling, but. Certainly. We had oral arguments last week, as was reported. And we'll see what he does.
Hearing is just as I clarify the letter that I received, it's to have parking in the front of the building.
Side of the
building.
Cause that.
In this case, it's the side that faces Giant, the
Yeah,
Dollar General.
Yes,
It's
right.
The DG market.
Giant Eagle Express
Mhm.
forever. Near those old people.
It's inevitable.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. I have a couple of requests. The first one is that I'd like to have two representatives join our Public Safety Committee next year, starting in January, and that would be one representative from Indiana Fire Association and one representative from Citizens Ambulance. The whole thought there is obviously police, fire, and EMS is our public safety. And I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to have them come and, express their situations, how they're doing that type of thing. So I thought maybe we could add that in January.
Seeing these as representatives to the Public Safety Committee rather than as members of the committee.
Well, they would, they would be,
Council members.
And they can vote, so.
wouldn't be what it would be about. Yeah.
Give important updates if need be. Like,
Just like we have IUP.
A liaison.
Council.
yeah,
Liaison is perfect, yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I'd like to be able to do that in January, that kind of stuff. Okay,
See that requires a council action. I think if the committee is.
it's public safety.
the other thing is I am requesting from Public Safety to Public Works that the crew would plow the parking lot behind the fire station at Fifth and Philly. That's something that we had one of our volunteers do, but now he no longer can do that. So as in the front of our building, we have the snow melt that takes care of us getting the trucks out. But we won't have the ability to really get the back parking lot plowed in time at times. We don't know when the time would be. But we would ask Public Works if maybe they could plow that parking lot for us. So that
Operational kind of a decision. I mean, I don't know. They sort of decide that, I think there's some lots that they plow and there's some things that they do sort of when need be. I don't know. I feel like it'd be all, seems all right with me. But I don't want to take them out of their work plan, you know what I mean? That's it would be awkward for me to, I don't know, anybody else feels about it, it'd be awkward for me to say, hey, Paul, go make sure you do this at the same time you're plowing everything else. And make sure it's fine. I would just say that seems like an operational decision.
Sensitive that you would like an answer. So how do we get an answer?
Well, we talked about this. We
Yeah.
had the conversation and obviously our new Parks Department is the one who's in charge of, they're gonna plow our parking lots and our lots. So maybe. In that, and I did, White Township does their, White Township.
White Township's done our other
Yeah.
stations since we opened it, yes.
And it's just the one back here. So I think we can make arrangements either with our Parks Department while they're out doing our park,
Right.
yeah.
You can also give them my phone number. I'm not as limited by number of hours on the road as the Parks Department might be, given the fact that a fire can happen at 2 o'clock in the morning. So if something like that does happen, give them my number. I haven't looked at the parking lot, but if it isn't that big, I mean, that's a few minutes maybe to throw an assist out there. And I know other guys are probably willing to pitch and hit, once or twice here if the Parks Department or Public Works is tied up with the main roads, you know what I mean? So.
That's.
That's their purview, then let them handle it. But in a pinch, off hours, that sort of thing, if you want to give them, you can give them my number. And like I said, I know other guys, I'm sure would be willing to throw a free one in there every once in a while for a fire. I mean, that's kind of your house on fire, but we're snowed in. That would have really sucked. Right?
Hopefully that'll all come together. Thanks a lot. That's all I have. Thanks.
Brings us to old business and a discussion of the priority setting workshop. I see that our priority setter is busy.
Setting priorities.
All right. Who asked me to come in and talk with you guys a little bit to just kind of recap the time that we spent on Saturday, for those of you that were there. We spent 90 minutes together, and the reason we were there was really to set some priorities for 2024. We had a little bit of a running start. We had people had 4 planning documents, really 3 planning documents. We have kind enough to share that have this work and move forward. And so we threw that stuff in there, but essentially you had a running start. You had a set of 84 recommendations to choose from, meaning we didn't have to do a lot of idea generation. So we took the 90 minutes, we identified 9. And so let me just recap. The point here, I think, is just to kind of generally go through it, and I won't be lengthy, but also to open it up for questions, because it's important that we all kind of get clear on what those priorities are going into the next year, because really that would center the organization in terms of what we're working on. One of the things we did in the workshop and setting it up is say, if you bumped into somebody on the street and they said, hey, I know you're affiliated with the borough. What's going on at the borough? What are you guys focused on? And sometimes it's difficult to answer that question. And so this really gives you a way to answer the question, essentially. So I think this was shared with you, which is just a summary, which is the document that I'm looking at. So we had, in terms of who was there, of course, all the elected officials, you all were invited, also appointed officials, the planning commission was invited, and then senior staff from the borough. So of those groups, we had 19 folks in the room, 8 council members, 2 appointed officials. So Chuck and Bill from planning commission were there. And then borough staff, we had 7 total senior staff members there, so good participation. And then Molly and Faye were also there outside those 3 groups. So good participation. Welcome and introductions. We reviewed the 84 recommendation, which of course was difficult to do because we were constrained on time. And they were pulled from 4 documents. One is the draft 2022 comprehensive plan update, the 2022 strategic management plan program report, the 2022 active transportation plan, and the 2022 downtown Indiana preliminary report. So all of them are very current. A handful of recommendations were added based on the planning team's review of the planning documents and identified as planning review summary adds. And essentially, if you look at the comprehensive plan, sometimes it's a little difficult to pull out an exact recommendation. If you compare and contrast it to the strategic management report, those are very clear and easy to see what those recommendations are. In the comprehensive plan, less so. So it just gave us a chance to kind of pull out and distill a recommendation that was understandable for the group. The recommendations were organized into 8 themes: getting our house in order, which is really an internal sort of recommendation. So what do we need to do inside the organization to be better and tackle more things? It would include things like renovating the borough building, updating the zoning ordinance would be examples of that type of recommendation. The other was infrastructure. The other was creating great neighborhoods. The other was connections and recreation. This would be active transportation projects, parks and recreation. Building community, which is fairly unique, but a common theme across many of the plans. What does that mean? What type of recommendation would be things like bringing people together, things or recommendations that centered around coming together to solve problems or do things in the community. Light, protecting what makes us great, which is the historic preservation component, lots of recommendations there, and then investing in downtown. The list of, we use nominal group technique, which really just sounds a fancy way to identify 5 and then give them a score. And then we total the scores, which is, it's a fancy sticky dot exercise. If you've done a sticky dot exercise, it's just a little more fun. And it takes the loudest voices out of the room. So it's an effective for a large group because we did have a lot of folks there. And then we scored them there in the room. We had a total of 285 points available, and we lost 9 points, which was normal in a group this size. It was either illegible or it just didn't the numbers didn't add up. It just didn't work. So we lost 9 points, but we were able to score the majority of it. And then the results were refined, combining and grouping similar recommendations. So in a list that large, what we found was that a lot of the folks that were voting on, for instance, senior housing is a good example. So senior housing, there were a couple recommendations in there, each that received votes, but they were worded differently. One said housing for plus 55, another one said something very similar, but a little different and was out of a different plan. So I just lumped those together and then changed the point total. But essentially, if you remember the scores that on that day that were reflected back, they stayed pretty much all there. They just moved a little bit in their point value. And I did adjust the wording of some of the recommendations to improve clarity. Again, when you got a combination of the recommendations, just needed a little work. 9 clear priorities emerged with 10 or more points. That was a reasonable break in looking across the combination of all the recommendations that got votes. Wastewater connections, a clear priority. It received 7 more votes than the next priority. If you looked at just the themes, getting our house in order and infrastructure were clear priorities for the group. Creating great neighborhoods also scored very high, but there was a natural break between it and the first 2, which was just interesting, right? So again, going back to the idea that you bump into somebody on the street, we could say we're very focused on inside the organization getting things right, so that then we're able to tackle some of the things that we need to tackle strategically. We're also focused or seem to be prioritizing the things you don't see, which are underneath your feet, which is sewage connections, right? Very, very clear priority, got lots of votes. And again, if you look at the vote totals, you see them there. So I'll just quickly run through them. Updating connections, 36 votes. Establish a sidewalk maintenance program designed to assist property owners in fixing sidewalks, got 29. Updating the borough zoning ordinance, 26. And I'm reading these in order. Undertake activities and projects that limit flooding. Explore partnerships with neighboring municipalities. Collaborate with anchor institutions around shared interests. Again, that was one that I was able to pull together some of the recommendations. Promote economic stability and growth. Development of an economic development strategy and marketing downtown. Creating a welcoming community with specific focus on marginalized populations. 8, explore the feasibility of a land bank. Again, that's connected to blight. And creating, enabling and encouraging senior housing development, got 10 votes. There's only a 2 vote margin where it drops to the next one. So it was difficult to make the cut at 9. But it seemed to make sense to keep it in sort of double digits because you just would keep going because of the separation. There was no clear natural break there where you got something you could say, okay, we're going to tackle these 14. But 9 is a healthy list for the next, 12 months to be focused on 9 things. And it may lend itself to some additional work in terms of identifying within those 9. We had a very healthy discussion at the end of the session where we talked about meeting the moment. Obviously, there's tons of stuff happening. You're getting lots of, I'm sure, encouragement and complaints from your constituents in terms of what we need to be doing. So there still may be some work left to do. In terms of themes, getting the house in order, infrastructure, the last one there, we captured all of them except protecting what makes us great, got really 12 votes. And investing in downtown got 9 votes. But again, some of those themes are kind of worked into those top 2. I won't go into how they're supported. I did in the document, you'll see where I pulled out language from the planning documents where the recommendation came from. The reason I did that is because if you're somebody like me, I would want to know the language in the plan and how they were talking about that particular recommendation. So it's there if you want it. It just makes the homework a little easier. In terms of what comes next, there's a little section there where there's some bullets. We talked about aligning resources, really clarifying the list in terms of that, if that list needs to be a little smaller, Also talked about the opportunity to get some new ideas in there. You know, we're working with a batch of recommendations. We did have 4 that were offered by the group that was in the room that weren't in the recommendations that, and actually one of them made the top 9 priorities in terms of developing economic development strategy. But there may be other ones out there. So if there's some work there where we need to do some brainstorming and refine that and then include that in here, we're certainly open to do that. But we have an operational list, and I think that's good for the group, because again, now we can use this as a skeleton to build everything else around. What from a staff level it means for us is developing a batch of actions related to that. And we'll be asking for your help as we do that. I think what we can do in the meantime is talk about what's already happening. For instance, the updating the zoning ordinance is already happening. And so we're going to be developing an RFP and putting that stuff out there. I know that's a priority for Nicole. So a lot of this stuff is already happening. So I think we can put together what's happening currently and what could be happening in terms of kind of where money is, where things there seems to be some energy. So, and then I'm open to questions or feedback. Yeah.
I want to thank you for the write-up. I think it's really precise, accurate, and precise. I really appreciate it. Complete, I should say. Lots of tables and lots of color coding. And I do think it's actually remarkably helpful. And I want to just comment on those priorities we ended up with. I think I walked away, I was like, nothing's really, I was somewhat critical. I'm not of the process, but are we doing something new? But when I look at sort of these top 6, I'm looking at your page 2, those top 6, and I look at the color coded sort of different categories, and considering some of the things that are moving or various stages are about to be moving, and then some things on here that really aren't in kind of an idea stage. It seems like a pretty decent balance to not freak people out, right? If these are all of our priorities and they were all brand new priorities, like we weren't already thinking about the zoning ordinance update, we weren't already thinking about a complete sewer rehaul, at least half a complete sewer rehaul, we weren't already thinking about a lot of these things. It would be kind of a sidewalk maintenance program. It's various stages of development. It'd be kind of overwhelming. And at the same time, I think I like the color codes, these themes. We've got some infrastructure, we've got connections and recreation, we've got getting our housing order, great neighborhoods. That encompasses a lot of those other colors, I think. I think that creating great neighborhoods, that's kind of the new thing. That's like meeting the moment, I think, that I was thinking about at the end of the meeting. But these other pieces, what are we doing? Like you said, we're maintaining the underground and then thinking where we can grow. I think that's so I just wanted to say, I think this looks great. These top 6, I hope the worry is we walk out of this with a huge list that all council wants to do and staff's like, back off. And I hope this is not that list. So I guess this is a comment. I appreciate it.
And I talked to you a little bit also. I guess my specific hopes would be from this. There's 2 things specifically. One is for all of these, before we significantly move down any path, I want to define what successfully achieving it looks like. I think that's a huge thing. Infrastructure or the sidewalk maintenance can't be success only when every single sidewalk in town is perfect. That's just never going to happen, right? By the time you finish fixing them, you have to start over, right? So, just as an example, what does success look like? XYZ, whatever, right? So I think that's very important for any of these, is to have that, what are we calling the finish line, so that you can say, we've done it, we're moving on, right? And some of these obviously are going to be, all of these will be continuous. You're never done trying to create a welcoming neighborhood, right? Like there's always improvement you can do. There's always infrastructure or some, okay, maybe it won't be flooding, maybe it'll be something else, right? It always comes up, right? The roofs on the buildings will all fall off or whatever. So I think defining what success looks like in any one of these is, I don't want to say the most important thing, but it's right up there. Otherwise, where are you aimed at? Where are you pointing the gun, right? And the other thing that my personal dream sheet, I don't know if it'll happen or not, I would like to see the list even all the 80, even to extrapolate it out to any more of the 84 wanting to be involved into 4 categories: short-term goals, long-term goals, medium goals, and in progress. Because just because something is in progress doesn't mean it doesn't need a little more TLC, right? We could make the argument that flooding is in progress, yet it's still a major problem. So is it in progress enough? Right? And then breaking into those categories, because my example from that weekend, and a lot of you were there, but not everyone was there. If you have to go to the bathroom, nothing else matters, right? You have to satisfy that short-term need before you can worry about lunch. Once you're fed, you know what I mean? Like your immediate needs are your immediate needs. It doesn't mean, the other ones aren't important. They're just not short-term. They're not 911. You have to go pee, right? And so I think breaking them into those categories would help someone like me, who's very concerned with flooding, comparatively speaking to creating a welcoming neighborhood was something that Gerald brought up. Flooding might be a 20-year thing, and in fairness, creating a welcoming neighborhood might be never ending, but you can make some low-hanging fruit, sort of quick gains in it. And why prioritize one over the other when realistically you can move on both, right? One is slow and steady, one might be a little more immediate, but defining them as such, that way you're not in, well, we haven't done anything with flooding. Therefore, we can't create a welcoming community. Well, that seems a little silly to try to say it's one or the other, when realistically you can do some in conjunction with each other. So those are my two kind of. And I assume you're going to get into the what happens next. Is that correct?
We can, yeah, and we can hit on it. I'd like to respond because I think the question about how we're measuring success is a really good one, and I know you and I talked a little bit about that. You did the perfect one, establishing sidewalk maintenance program. Essentially, the metric is if at the end of this 12 months we've established the program, then that would be accomplishing that priority, right? However, the one prior to that, which is updating connections, that's where it needs some work, right? Because what is it that we're going to work on to make those and update those connections? So I guess the question for the larger group is, do we want to spend some time, and we could probably do it in pre-established meetings. Maybe we could come in for 30, 40 minutes prior to drill down into establishing these metrics, or should we put together a smaller group to come up with some
I
metric?
thought we
What
were
would
gonna
work?
take it to community. I thought we were gonna handle it at community development. Like community development, weren't we gonna try to handle them at like the work sessions at community development?
We can.
And
I apologize. When we said work sessions last night, I thought we meant like this work session. I mean, we can definitely do it in community development, but I was thinking we were going to use a couple of these larger group work sessions as a way to do this, but not knowing what we have planned for work sessions for the next.
that's true, we can do that too. Because we were gonna do community development and planning commission as one, but that's, I guess, for the comp plan, but yeah.
I'm open to anything, and it can be
Yeah.
really specific. We can kind of carve out something, a really specific question to tackle so that it doesn't get unwieldy.
I'm looking at some of these are specifically sort of public works focused and are at least on the radar, and I wonder if there's not a way to use some of the committees on at least some of them. So, this mentions limiting flooding. We have a stormwater management plan. What do we call it? Stormwater, long-term 5-year plan that identifies just, the priorities across the borough that was on our agenda in the last meeting that, we should revisit or can revisit or have been revisiting or are revisiting right now. This updating connections between homes and businesses and the public wastewater system, that will be our sewer rebuild, which really starts in spring. I think was when we have to put in the state request for that. So it's possible that some of these priorities can kind of be taken on, at least from the public works perspective, taken on through the current committee.
Community
And there's no doubt. This is a clear fire under sort of our committee's butts, right? These are the priorities I've identified. If you're not sure. Sorry, go ahead, but.
Because I'm opinionated and I want to be involved, I can shamelessly throw admin out there. Rumor has it there's not a lot going on in January. I'm just saying we could, no, but actually, to piggyback off what Gerald said, would it make some kind of sense to give each committee two of these and say, here you go, define what success looks like, and then we can put that pool together. That way, not any one committee is overwhelmed. And it's as simple as, what do we think success would look like? Because that, in my opinion, is one of the first things to do. Bring it back to the the group and sort of redistribute labor after that step is done. Would that make some kind of sense? That way Ben's not just Ben, but public community development isn't doing all of them, and then public works isn't doing all of them, or et cetera.
Which one of these would fit neatly in these committees, and then ask the committees to come up with 1, 2, possibly 3. Next 12 months. And then those could be prioritized, right? They could see, so that we could start at the top and work our way down. Would that make sense?
That way, not any one committee gets overwhelmed. And if, Casey's not here to throw out an ad hoc committee, but that seems again like Gerald and Ben both said, some of these are very firmly public works or right.
Last night too, is that this was sort of a first pass at this with Jeff's sort of leadership of this group. And then we're kind of moving into sort of phase 2, where, as you say, we need to kind of put some parameters around it and figure out, like update borough zoning ordinance is great that it's on there, because there's a plan to do that. The funding is being lined up. And so that one, in 12 months, that one will be checked off, I think, is if I'm not misspeaking. So, great, we can one of the top 3 is very doable. And so, and some of them, as G said, with the sewer stuff, that's a burning thing that we're going to keep working on. So I think, but some of these aren't here. I think sort of phase 3, phase 4 is that eventually we'll get to a point where the committees aren't really sure what to do with them. There's sort of not what staff is comfortable doing. And those are things that we're hoping that we're going to be able to sort of put with Jeff's group to actually how do we promote economic stability and that kind of thing. So there's, I think is that a fair characterization of what we?
Community development, maybe planning commission, but yeah.
I was gonna say that number 6 there, the promote economic stability and growth through development of an economic strategy and marketing downtown. I think that's the one that probably has the most ideas and least focus of the top 6 list there. And that might be the one that the rest are kind of, they're evenly spaced out to committees, and maybe that's one that still is resting here in the work in another follow-up work session.
Well, that's one that community development has been thinking a lot about, and we're actually that's sort of what when we first started about hiring Jeff's group, that's the one I was thinking about exclusively. And so but I think. But if we were to follow the plan that Jeff laid out, where it sort of it goes and Luke suggests it goes to the committees sort of come up with a couple of things to work on, and then we come back to
The starting point.
Right.
This is basic, roughly what we think we want to see, and then we bring it back to the whole and say, okay, what's next? What do we do with this then?
So Ben, are you willing to put the sidewalk maintenance program on the agenda for our community development meeting? December 16th?
You can put that in admin. Just slide that over to admin. I am.
For that.
Spot.
Is that what our meeting is?
Yes, but. Yeah.
He's been hanging out by himself.
The idea of breaking it down in smaller packages and spreading them around makes some kind of sense. However, our committees all have specific focuses, and they can't set aside the other business. Some of these are naturally part of the business of public works. Some are naturally part of the business of community development. Not sure how much of this is naturally a part of the business of public safety or of administration. And so, well, if they don't have anything else on their plate, sure, pitch in and do it, because we're all eventually going to do this. We can't afford to be setting aside the necessary business of the borough in order to take this up.
No, but I mean, in fairness, this is also a part of it, right? And that's why I suggested keep giving each one something and just define success, right? Step one, what does success look like? Therefore, if admins ends up with, I don't know, creating great neighborhoods, the last one there, enabling, encouraging senior housing. Well, what does that even look like? You know, we can talk about that and just come up with what we think that looks like. On to regular business, bring it back to work session. Right? Pull ideas, go from there.
Some of them could go kind of anywhere, but like attack it, the land bank, that could be an admin one. Chief Shaw is already doing quite a bit with collaborating with other municipalities. So that one could go, for lack of a much better place to live, could go hang out with public safety for a meeting kind of deal. I mean, I think we could carve off 3 or 4. And then, yeah, you're right, though. Add public works and community development, we'll end up with more of them. But if we end up with like 3 or 4 of each of those, I mean, I could run a much more efficient meeting than I do, and we could probably go through this.
From the public works perspective, I'm pretty sure this is the work that we're doing. This is already the work. I don't feel like anything here is extra. I think it, lights a fire under public works has to say, and the committee has to make sure things are moving forward. But
yeah, we said that Saturday. Some of these may simply just be communication of what's actually happening and check, right? Like, oh, here's all of what we're doing for flooding. Oh, maybe it's just simple as communicate that to the public, council, and then public. And you can call that one worked on, right? I mean, some of these are going to be, like you said, ordinance is already happening. Well, that's number 3. Pretty much done.
Well, with your permission, I'll work with Nicole and the committee chairs to parse that out. Would that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Does that make sense? All right.
I like it. Yeah,
Thank you.
all right, thanks, Jeff.
Substantial progress for us. Yeah.
And we have one item of new business on the agenda, which is the 2023 meeting schedule, which we do not have.
This will be a good time to, and we don't have that prepared. We can get it prepared for November. I just needed a guidance. Do you guys just want to go with the basic 1-year calendar and keep the committee structure the same, advertise it as is? I know there's been talk about changing the council, like changing the structure and going to 3 meetings or, moving some things around. But again, that's probably not going to happen until the reduction of council to.
So that next year we should be working on how we're going to do it, but
I mean, realistically speaking, what would the process be? Let's just say in the next 5 seconds, we all came up with something we all agreed on, right? And wanted to do it. What is the process?
I mean, you would just make a motion to change the schedule.
March, we decide we want to change something, we can just change it then, right? I mean,
Would have to but so we are gonna advertise one time. It's really no big deal. It's just the advertising, a different structure meeting, but we advertise for the whole year. That way we do one advertisement for the whole year with all the committees, that calendar thing.
decide we want to change something. It doesn't sound that big of a deal if we did change our mind later and said, hey, look, did we work this out? This sounds great. Let's give it a go.
sometimes find that there's a conflict and we have to move a committee meeting.
It falls on holiday or something.
Know with this, and we've had those brief discussions about, we're sitting here at work session and none of the committees really have a report. Like flip-flop things during the month so that during a work session, we can talk about what we talked about at the meeting a week before. It's almost like, not that it's wasted time, but
So we had it the other way. I've been up, so we had it the way it was now, and then we changed it the other way. And that was also challenging for a lot of folks. And then we came back to the way it is now. And I think it's also challenging. My thought is, with the new structure or whatever, is to try to make it as easy for our staff as possible.
Yeah.
So I would love a recommendation from, at some point next year, what kind of makes sense for you guys, for Nicole, for you to manage your staff to be able to get to the meetings. And then we can kind of adhere to what makes sense for y'all. That would be my hope, rather than us being like, let's micromanage it. I would rather
But in terms of right now, advertising for next year.
let's just do it what we're doing.
Yes.
Yes.
The council is going
I
to
would
be
suggest
exactly
no
the same
changes.
as it is now. We might as well.
We'll have it ready for the December's meeting for everybody to look at, and then.
So- Council reduction isn't gonna be until 2024.
So over the next year.
So
should
we have a full year to work on it.
This work session agenda is mostly for something like this, a presentation or something. It's not really to go over, like, we can kind of even take these committees unless there's an action item off the table. I know every time we get to them, we say, oh, there's nothing to report, but they're more for a presentation, anything that we need to, a budget presentation, any type of.
And I actually do like having them on here because, so community development meets last night. And that was only, and so if we wait the full month for anything that's even remotely timely, it's no longer timely. And so like, you'll hear me sometimes, I'll make announcements as part of our report, just because it's trying to get the information out there. So I do like having the standing reports on here just for that. I also forget within a month, usually what we talked about. And so it's helpful for me to get the important stuff out there.
That's why we have the minutes in the agenda.
I find this,
Schedule, and then we'll start talking and maybe come up.
Meeting schedule we need to discuss. Then can we adjourn into our executive session?
Yeah, I didn't think of it when you asked whether or not we needed an admin committee meeting, so I was just gonna ask it now, if that's okay. It's concerning event parking. I had somebody come to me and was rather dramatic about it, but in fairness, she was grumpy and had some good points. So I had a quick question on just clarity on how event parking works. And I will say it, and you can just tell me if I'm wrong. So at 5 o'clock, basically, it would be trigger event parking. So someone would be there to collect slightly more for the allotted amount of time than normal parking. Is that right? Okay. And then at X amount of time, the gates would go back down. People would have to get tickets, et cetera. Everything's back to normal, right? So the frustration that they had was it's a wonderful life event, or you want to go downtown, you want to go out, et cetera. Any of these things, right? We want to promote businesses downtown, people going out, have dinner, drink, whatever. Well, at 9 o'clock, they're now locked in the parking garage. They can't get out, which is not actually true. Okay, right? But if you don't know the process on how to get out, if the gates go back down, you don't have a ticket to get out, I guess. And you have to call the number if, right. So anyway, the idea would be, what if there was a possibility of charging slightly more for event parking and just extending the time to the next morning?
Was there, because they were there till 10, and my conversation I had with Hank was everybody was pretty much out. Like there was no stragglers.
Thought I had to.
We're out for 9.
And the only thought I truly had to extrapolate on that is you're also having a staff member on a Friday there until 10 o'clock at night. Versus they could just go home and then somebody just has to come in at 8 o'clock in the morning to reset the system or whatever. So I didn't know if that would possibly even be easier on the staff. And you charge $2 more and make it all night, or I don't know. I'm just, again, I was gonna bring it up in admin, and I forgot, so sorry about that. But that was all I was wondering. Is there a way to charge slightly more and just ease the burden on the staff? They don't have to hang out till 10.
They
And,
probably don't mind getting that little bit of extra pay, though.
okay, that's.
Just saying, they might be like,
That-
hey,
that-
wait.
That might be a fair point, but you get what I'm saying. It seems like if I was a worker, I wouldn't want to be out on a Friday night till 10 o'clock. I'd rather be downtown
Enjoy.
enjoying the,
Or whatever, we pay $5, so you. In the season, people hand them $5, but you go, okay, it's 7 cents, you're dealing with change and there's already a backup on Water Street. So if you say,
if there's, I mean, I don't know how many people park overnight. I'm just wondering if there's a way to make it a little bit.
that for that event, it was, but there was people in there parked already from who have their normal.
Once they left, do people come in there very often? So I'm just wondering if there's a way to ease the burden a little bit. You give them a little more time, you don't have the staff member there. And just extend it into the morning, and then you can say $5, you park all night. Well, we just canceled the next meeting. That's the only reason Well, that's fair. That's a fair point. Yeah, that's fine. That's true. That's a good point.
One thing I'm gonna plug. This is just because I have to do it. but I'll help myself. IUP is hosting a playoff football game Saturday. If you buy a ticket, you also get into the men's basketball game at 4:30 for free. So if you have nothing better to do, your family's in, you want to take them to a Division II national regional quarterfinal.
Or you want to get away from them.
It's yeah, I mean, this is each week it gets a bigger deal and, you know, we're very fortunate in this community to have a university that has top-notch athletics at their level, so we should support it. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Thank you. I'll take that as a report from IUP.
The paper is a congratulations or a good luck thing, or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't spend tax dollars, I'm just saying. Go support it. IUP plays Ashland University. IUP's 9-1, Ashland is 10-1.
And one of those teams will win. Okay,
Exactly.
all right, we're going to adjourn into an executive session. So, gentlemen of the press.